The stars remembered what men had forgotten. They whispered across the dark void of time, carrying echoes of fire and ash, screams and silence. 10,000 years ago, Earth, the cradle of humanity, was not merely conquered, it was scorched. Armadas descended upon it like carrion birds upon the dying, turning oceans to vapor and continents to char. The galaxy believed humanity extinct. Their ruins became myths, their name a cautionary tale whispered to young races who thought to resist empires. Do not stand against the Dominion, they said. The humans did, and see what became of them. Yet in the unlit corners of space, in arc ships that slipped through wormholes no one charted, humanity endured. They carried not only memory but fury, an ember buried under the weight of centuries, waiting for the day it would erupt into flame. Now, after 10 millennia, the descendants of the exiled have returned. And with them comes a vengeance carved into steel, sung in plasma fire, and written in the very marrow of their bones. The void had a memory. It carried the echoes of screams that no one alive remembered, the shadows of fires long extinguished. The Dominion told the galaxy those fires had consumed the last of humanity. They swore Earth's children had been erased, their planet reduced to cinder, their story ended in smoke. 10,000 years passed, and still that light clung to the stars like oil to water. But space does not forget. It only waits. On the edge of Sector Thalaris, the Dominion's patrol fleet drifted with the arrogance of rulers who had never known fear. Their warships were sleek and bristling with weapons, their hulls painted with crimson banners proclaiming eternal conquest. For countless generations, no power had challenged them. No fleet dared oppose them. They were the apex, unshaken, unquestioned. Until tonight. On their scanners appeared a vessel unlike any catalogued in their archives. It emerged from the darkness like a leviathan rising from deep waters, slow, deliberate, silent. Its hull shimmered not with reflected starlight, but with an obsidian sheen that seemed to devour the glow of suns. It bore no transponder codes, no insignias of allegiance. Just a dark shape cutting across the void. Unregistered craft detected, Overseer Keth barked from his command throne. His voice, harsh and grating, echoed across the Dominion flagship's bridge. Transmit identification immediately or be destroyed. Static filled the comms. No reply. Keth's mandibles clattered in irritation. Do they not know whose territory they trespass upon? The vessel did not alter course. It continued its inexorable glide forward, as if the Dominion ships around it were nothing more than drifting debris. Arm weapons, Keth ordered. Perhaps they need a lesson. But even as he spoke, an unease prickled at the back of every crewman's mind. Something about the dark vessel unsettled them. It was not merely alien, it was wrong, ancient, like a shadow cast from a nightmare no one remembered having. On board the obsidian dreadnought, Exodus Prime, Admiral Seraph Hale stood at the center of her command bridge. The chamber was vast, shaped like a cathedral of steel and shadow, illuminated only by the ghostly light of tactical holoscreens. Her uniform was black, unadorned, save for the insignia on her chest, a broken blue and white sphere crowned with fire. Earth. The symbol of a world no longer alive, yet more present than any star. 10,000 years, Hale whispered, her eyes narrowing as she studied the Dominion patrol ships arrayed before her. Their banners, their arrogance, their false dominion over the ashes of history, it all stoked the ember of fury she had carried her entire life. And still the scar remains. Behind her, Commander Rin Vaynar, his scarred features lit by the glow of a tactical display, inclined his head. Admiral, they demand identification. Hale's lips curved into the faintest ghost of a smile. Let them wait. Fear grows best in silence. Outside, Overseer Keth's patience cracked. Fire a warning volley, he snarled. From the Dominion cruisers erupted arcs of plasma fire, brilliant spears of energy cutting across the black. They slammed against the hull of Exodus Prime. The void lit up in blossoms of light. When the glare faded, the dreadnought remained untouched, unmoving. The plasma bolts had not even scorched its surface, the energy had been swallowed whole, absorbed into layered shielding that Dominion science could not yet imagine. On the Dominion bridge, silence fell. Then panic. What technology is this? One officer stammered. Why does it not? But Overseer Keth was already barking more orders. All ships. Concentrated fire. Tear that abomination apart. Yet before his command could be carried out, Exodus Prime answered. Hatches along its hull yawned open. From within thundered forth kinetic slugs, each one a mountain of alloy accelerated to relativistic speed. They crossed the void in seconds. Dominion cruisers disintegrated under the assault, their hulls shredded, their cores rupturing in silent explosions. One ship was cleaved clean in two, spinning lifelessly into the dark. The Dominion's vaunted patrol fleet collapsed like paper consumed by flame. On the bridge of Exodus Prime, Admiral Hale raised one gloved hand. Enough. The storm ceased as quickly as it had begun. Wreckage drifted in silence. Survivors among the Dominion's ships scrambled to retreat, their formations shattered. And then Hale gave the order that would ignite the galaxy. Transmit the signal. A pulse radiated outward from the dreadnought, not a weapon, not a code. A message. Across every frequency, every Dominion channel, every scrambling sensor, the image appeared. A blue and white sphere. A planet wrapped in oceans, streaked with clouds, continents gleaming in sunlight. Earth. The Overseer froze. His mandibles clicked in dread as ancient tales, long dismissed as propaganda, clawed back into memory. No, he whispered. Impossible. They were extinct. The humans were annihilated. The Dominion crews stared at the symbol in horror. For them it was a ghost, a myth come alive. For Admiral Hale and her people, it was an oath fulfilled. Admiral, Commander Vaynar said, lacing his voice, the signal is away. Hale's gaze never left the stars. Her voice was calm, almost reverent. Signal the fleet. And from the dark came an answer. At first a few shadows emerged from behind the broken light of Thalorus's star. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Ships unlike any the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. Each one a fortress, forged in exile, bristling with weapons that bent spacetime itself. Some were titanic carriers the size of small moons, others were dagger-shaped frigates swift as lightning. Together, they filled the void in formations of perfect precision, eclipsing the starlight with their sheer presence. The Black Armada had come. Every vessel bore the same insignia, the broken earth crowned in fire. It was not a flag of empire, nor a banner of conquest. It was a scar. A wound carved into history, carried into battle as a reminder. On Exodus Prime, Hale looked out upon her fleet, her voice carrying like a blade drawn across steel. For 10,000 years we waited. We buried our grief in silence. We forged our vengeance in exile. Now the Dominion will know what it is to lose everything. Now the galaxy will remember the name they tried to erase. Her words echoed through the comms, repeated on every ship of the Armada. Soldiers stood straighter. Pilots gripped their controls with burning resolve. Engineers whispered oaths over engines that hummed like thunder. This is not conquest, Hale declared. This is judgment. And so it began. The Dominion had awakened a ghost they thought long buried. The stars, which had carried the memory of humanity's ashes for 10 millennia, now bore witness to their return. And in the silence after that first strike, the galaxy trembled, for the forgotten children of Earth had come home, not as refugees, but as executioners. The galaxy had lived too long in the Dominion's shadow. For thousands of years, they had stretched their banners across star systems like chains, smothering dissent with fleets that blotted out suns. Their power had grown fat on fear and silence. But silence had broken. The Black Armada moved like a storm through the void. In every system they entered, Dominion strongholds fell. Not slowly, not after long campaigns of attrition, but in hours, sometimes minutes. Where Dominion warfleets once projected dominance, now only wreckage drifted, torn into ribbons by weapons the galaxy had never seen. It was not just war. It was revelation. For millennia, younger civilizations had been taught that resistance was futile. That humanity had once resisted and had been annihilated. But now, across the stars, rumors raced faster than any courier ship. The humans lived. They had not died. They had hidden, endured, evolved, and returned with power that turned the Dominion's fleets to ash. To oppressed peoples, it was hope. To Dominion lords, it was terror. In the Dominion capital world of Karith Prime, the High Council convened in a chamber that stretched upward like a cathedral of black stone. Holographic projections of the war spread across the air above them, red clusters blinking out, replaced by the ominous dark symbols of Earth's armada. They should not exist, one counselor hissed, slamming a clawed hand onto the table. His scaled skin glistened with fear sweat. The records are clear, their world was destroyed. Records, another spat bitterly, compiled by victors too arrogant to finish the task. Supreme Lord Zaith rose, towering above them, his armor gleaming obsidian trimmed with gold. His voice rumbled like thunder. Do you fools not see? We stand at the edge of an abyss we ourselves created. We salted their soil, burned their oceans, and thought them gone. But some survived. And while we grew complacent in our empire, they sharpened themselves into blades. The chamber fell silent. None dared contradict him. Zaitha's gaze burned into the holographic map. If they are not stopped, they will dismantle everything we have built. Not for conquest. For vengeance. And vengeance, counselors, does not tire. Meanwhile, aboard Exodus Prime, Admiral Seraph Hale presided over her war council. The chamber was stark, its walls adorned only with a single relic, a fragment of scorched earth soil, preserved under glass. Around the central hollow table, her commanders gathered, their faces hard, their eyes alight with the fire of generations. Holographic stars glimmered before them, charting the next path of destruction. Red zones marked Dominion strongholds. Blue arcs traced the routes of the Black Armada. The stars looked like pieces of a shattered mosaic, and Hale intended to break them further. We are not conquerors, Hale said, her voice carrying the cold precision of a blade. We do not build empires. We burn them. For every colony raised upon our bones, for every city built atop our ashes, for every monument to their arrogance, we will erase them. Murmurs of assent rippled through the council. But Commander Rin Vaynar leaned forward, his brow furrowed. His voice was steady but edged with concern. Admiral, the galaxy watches. Already we see signs, insurrections rising, oppressed peoples taking courage from our advance. To them, we are saviors. If we are not careful, we may become what they need, not merely what we are. The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Some of the younger officers exchanged glances. Saviors? The word felt foreign. Admiral Hale's gaze was iron. Fear is a weapon, she replied. And hope is a chain. We will not be their liberators. We are judgment. If they rise against the Dominion while we strike, let them. But we are not here to guide them. We are here to remind the galaxy what happens when you burn humanity's home. The finality in her tone ended the discussion. The next campaign unfolded across the veilless expanse, a cluster of star systems fortified as the Dominion's forward bastion. Shipyards sprawled across asteroid belts, producing fleets without rest. Entire planets had been hollowed into arsenals, bristling with weapons. For centuries, no enemy had pierced its defenses. The Black Armada carved through it in 2 weeks. At the Battle of Vaith Prime, Dominion defenses fell with terrifying swiftness. Human singularity cannons warped the fabric of space, dragging entire battleships into artificial black holes that winked out seconds later. Swarms of drone fighters, each carrying shards of antimatter, slipped past defenses and gutted carriers from within. Kinetic storms rained down on fortresses, splitting them open like fruit. Dominion commanders tried to rally, but their tactics had grown stagnant, shaped by centuries of facing weak opposition. Against the humans, every maneuver was anticipated, countered, dismantled. The Armada fought not like soldiers, but like survivors who had spent millennia perfecting the art of revenge. On the surface of Vaith Prime, where once humanity had settled a colony in ages past, Admiral Hale walked the blackened soil. The planet's crust still carried the scars of orbital bombardments unleashed 10,000 years earlier. The Dominion had paved their cities over those ruins, erecting towers of steel and stone upon humanity's graves. Hale knelt, running her gloved fingers through the ashen soil. For a moment, the steel in her expression cracked, replaced by something raw, grief, sharpened into rage. "This was ours," she whispered. Commander Vaynar approached, his boots crunching on charred ground. "And now it is theirs no longer." Around them, soldiers raised banners bearing the fractured Earth insignia. They planted them in the Dominion's plazas, where statues of their overlords once stood. The symbols of humanity fluttered in alien winds, defiance written in every thread. The message was clear: we remember. Across the galaxy, reactions rippled. In the slave colonies of Xyrus, whispers turned into riots. Shackled miners rose against their overseers, emboldened by the rumor that humanity had returned with vengeance. On distant free worlds, merchants debated in hushed tones whether to side with the Dominion or gamble on this resurgent power. And in the Dominion's inner circles, fear gnawed at their arrogance. Their fleets, once symbols of invincibility, were falling like brittle glass. Their enemies no longer feared them. Their allies questioned their strength. The galaxy, for the first time in 10,000 years, smelled blood in the water. Yet even in victory, the Armada was haunted. Aboard Exodus Prime, in the quiet hours after battle, Admiral Hale walked alone to the relic chamber. The fragment of Earth's soil rested in its glass case, lit softly. She touched the glass with her hand. Her crew believed her unshakable, iron-made flesh. But here, in solitude, her shoulders bowed under the weight of centuries. She remembered the stories passed down from the Ark survivors, of oceans that once gleamed under sunlight, of forests alive with song, of cities filled with laughter. None of it remained. Only ash. Only memory. Her whisper was a vow. "We are not done. Not until the Dominion's last world burns as ours once burned." The galaxy trembled as the Black Armada advanced. Some cheered. Some hid. All remembered. And the Dominion, once unchallenged, now faced a truth more terrifying than any rival empire. Humanity had not died. They had endured. They had waited. And they had returned, not as saviors. Not as conquerors. But as executioners. The Dominion bled. Worlds that had once glittered with banners of conquest now smoldered. Shipyards that had churned out warships for centuries drifted as wreckage in the void. Entire fleets lay shattered, their hulks orbiting suns like silent tombstones. And still the storm came. The Black Armada advanced with unrelenting purpose. Wherever its shadow fell, Dominion authority withered. Rebellions ignited, allies faltered, and fear spread through the ranks of those who had once believed themselves unshakable. But even predators fight hardest when cornered. At the heart of the Dominion, in the system of Kael'thar, Supreme Lord Zaith gathered the remnants of his empire. His voice carried across comms to every soldier, every ship still loyal. "This is no mere war," he thundered, his image projected as a towering hologram above mustering fleets. "This is survival. The humans return not as conquerors, but as annihilation." They will erase us, as we once erased them. Will you cower? Will you break? Or will you fight for the Dominion, for everything we have built from blood and fire? His words lit the dying embers of loyalty. For all their fear, the Dominion's warriors rallied. At Kaildar, they assembled a force greater than any seen in living memory, hundreds of thousands of warships, drawn from core fleets, mercenary contracts, and conscripted species bound by fear or obligation. Kaildar itself was a fortress world, its orbit encircled by ringed citadels armed with enough firepower to level continents. If humanity sought to end the Dominion here, they would pay in oceans of blood. The Black Armada came. From the darkness beyond the system's rim, they emerged, first in spearhead squadrons, then in waves, until the stars themselves seemed drowned by steel. The obsidian hulls of their dreadnoughts glimmered with predatory calm, their engines burning like silent suns. At the forefront, Exodus Prime led the charge. Admiral Seraph Hale stood upon her bridge, the glow of tactical holoscreens painting her face in cold light. Around her, crew members worked with the precision of ritual, every motion drilled by centuries of inherited discipline. "This is where it ends," Hale said, her voice low but steady, echoing across the command deck. "For 10,000 years, they believed us gone. Tonight, we remind them what endures." Commander Rin Vaynar glanced at her. "They have numbers beyond counting. Even with our strength, this will not be easy." Hale's lips curved into something sharp. "Nothing worth vengeance ever is." She raised her hand. "All ships. Advance." The void exploded into fire. Dominion fleets surged forward in coordinated waves, their weapons unleashing torrents of plasma and antimatter. Beams of incandescent energy cut across the dark, striking against human shields with the fury of suns. The space between fleets became an inferno. But the Armada did not break. Their formations shifted like living organisms, absorbing the Dominion's fury, then retaliating with precision. Singularity cannons cracked reality itself, dragging enemy dreadnoughts into collapsing spheres of gravity. Kinetic storms punched through carriers, shattering them into molten fragments. Swarms of drone fighters darted like schools of predators, overwhelming destroyers with surgical strikes. The battle was not chaos, it was orchestration. Where Dominion forces lunged, the Armada folded and cut. Where they pressed, the humans drew them into traps honed over millennia of hidden war. Entire Dominion squadrons vanished in coordinated ambushes, reduced to drifting debris before they could even regroup. Yet still they fought. Driven by desperation, by the command of their Supreme Lord, the Dominion poured everything into Kaildar. On the bridge of Exodus Prime, Hale's voice rang across the Armada's comms, broadcast to every ship, every soldier. "Today we repay a debt written in fire and blood. Today, we speak for the ashes of our mothers and fathers, for the oceans turned to steam, for the skies blackened by flame. And today the galaxy learns." Her ship's cannons roared, unleashing devastation that split a Dominion battleship apart in one blinding stroke. "We were never gone. We only waited." The Armada answered her with fury. Across the system, Dominion fleets buckled, their discipline fracturing under relentless assault. At the battle's heart, Supreme Lord Zaith commanded from his flagship, a colossal war construct bristling with weapons, a mobile fortress forged to symbolize Dominion supremacy. His voice barked across channels, rallying what forces remained. "They are mortal," he bellowed. "Bleed them. Break them. Show the galaxy the Dominion still endures." But even as he roared, the tide turned against him. Human spearhead squadrons pierced through his defensive walls, cutting toward the flagship like wolves scenting prey. On Exodus Prime, Hale's gaze locked onto the projection of Zaith's vessel. "There," she said. "End the head, and the body dies." The clash was cataclysmic. The Dominion flagship unleashed everything, lances of starfire, swarms of interceptors, volleys of antimatter warheads. Space itself seemed to convulse under the onslaught. But Exodus Prime was not alone. Flanking dreadnoughts absorbed the barrage, shields flaring white-hot before retaliating in synchronized fury. The Armada carved a corridor of destruction straight through the Dominion's last defense. Hale's voice cut across the bridge, "Fire all batteries." The dreadnought's cannons opened in unison. Singularities ripped across the void, tearing chunks from the Dominion flagship's armor. Kinetic lances drove through its superstructure, cracking it like an eggshell. Fires erupted across its length, spewing debris and bodies into the dark. Inside, Zaith raged, his commands turning to desperation. "Reinforce. Hold the line." But it was too late. One final salvo from Exodus Prime struck home, detonating the Dominion flagship's core. It erupted in a silent inferno, a sun born and dead in an instant. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, and with it, the Dominions will collapsed. Their fleets scattered. Their formations dissolved. Kael'thar's great defense crumbled into ruin. The fortress world itself lay exposed. Its orbital citadels, once monuments to power, shattered under the Armada's relentless fire. Cities below trembled as debris rained down, firestorms consuming districts in cascades of light. But Hale did not give the order to glass the planet. Instead, she stood silent on her bridge, eyes hard, watching Kael'thar burn. Then, with deliberate calm, she commanded. "Transmit a message." Across the galaxy, every channel, every frequency carried her voice. "We are humanity. We are the children of Earth. 10,000 years ago, the Dominion burned our home. You believed us extinct. You believed history would forget." Her voice grew sharper, resonant, as if spoken by the stars themselves. "You were wrong. We remember. And we are not finished." The transmission ended. Silence spread across the stars. On worlds oppressed for centuries, peoples listened in awe. In Dominion remnants, rulers quaked. The myth had become reality, and reality was worse than any story told. Humanity had returned, and their vengeance was only beginning. On the charred husk of Earth, beneath skies long stripped of life, the ashes stirred under eternal starlight. Humanity's banners now flew above Kael'thar, their vengeance etched into history. The galaxy would never again dismiss the name of humanity. For after 10,000 years, Earth's children had avenged the charred remains of home, and reminded the stars of a truth too long forgotten. You can burn a world. You can silence a people. But you cannot kill their memory. And when memory returns, it returns as fire.